Hello and welcome to Moneywise, where we break down the latest trends in business, finance, and the economy. In today's episode, we're diving into one of the hottest topics in the world of finance, Bitcoin. What is it? Who created it? And how does it work? We'll also discuss blockchain technology, Bitcoin mining, its market cap, as well as its environmental impacts. So stay tuned because this is the shape of the future of financial technology. Now let's dive into our guests' thoughts on these critical questions. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and share some insights on Bitcoin and how it's changing the world of finance.
Let's get right into it. For our listeners who may not be familiar, could you start by explaining what Bitcoin actually is and what problem it is solving?
Absolutely. Bitcoin is a type of digital currency or cryptocurrency that operates without a central authority or government. It's decentralized, meaning no one entity controls it, and it's built on blockchain technology, which we'll dive into shortly. The idea behind Bitcoin was to create a peer-to-peer currency that allows people to send money globally without the need for a middleman like a bank. This helps solve the problem of costly and slow cross-border transactions, especially for people who don't have access to traditional banking systems.
Really fascinating. So, who exactly created Bitcoin and when did it all begin?
Bitcoin was created by an anonymous person or group of people under the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto. It was introduced in 2008 through a white paper titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. The network itself was launched in January 2009, and Bitcoin was mined for the first time.
Interesting. So, how exactly does Bitcoin work? I mean, how do transactions actually take place without banks or central authorities involved?
Great question. So, Bitcoin transactions are verified by a network of computers using cryptography, and they get recorded on something called the blockchain, which is a public ledger. Basically, each transaction is grouped into a block and then added to a chain of blocks. That's where the name blockchain comes from. This process not only keeps everything secure, but also transparent. And once a block is added, it's almost impossible to change. The key to Bitcoin security lies in this decentralized system of verification.
Blockchain. We hear that word a lot, but can you break it down for our audience who may not be familiar?
Yes, of course. Blockchain is a decentralized digital ledger that records transactions across many computers in a way that makes it secure and transparent. Think of it like a public spreadsheet that everyone can see and update, but once something is recorded, it can't be changed. It's really the backbone of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies.
Now that we've got the basics down, how does someone go about buying Bitcoin, or as some like to call it, digital gold?
Well, you can purchase Bitcoin through different cryptocurrency exchanges, for instance, Coinbase or Binance, by using traditional currencies like dollars, euros, or other crypto assets. Once you've purchased it, you can store it in a digital wallet, which can either be online or offline for extra security.
That makes sense, especially with the focus on securing Bitcoin in a wallet. Now, speaking of security, could you explain what Bitcoin mining is and how it relates to the creation of new Bitcoins?
Absolutely. Bitcoin mining is the process by which new Bitcoins are created and transactions are verified. Miners use powerful computers to solve complex mathematical problems. When they solve these problems, they're rewarded with newly minted Bitcoins. This process not only generates new Bitcoin, but also secures the network and ensures the integrity of the blockchain.
That's really interesting. So, what kind of complex mathematical problems do miners actually solve during the mining process?
Great question. The mathematical problems that miners solve are based on something called hash functions. Specifically, they work with a cryptographic function called SHA-256. When a miner tries to solve a block, they're essentially trying to find a hash, a unique string of numbers and letters that meets a specific set of criteria. This process is incredibly difficult because it involves trying billions of different combinations until the correct one is found. It's a process known as proof of work. The complexity of these problems ensures that it's very hard to manipulate the blockchain or cheat the system. It's also what makes mining so resource intensive, since it requires a lot of computational power and energy to find the right solution.
Indeed, this sounds like a really complex process. So now that we've got a better understanding of how mining works, how much is one Bitcoin worth these days? And what's the current market cap looking like?
Apparently, Bitcoin's price fluctuates a lot because it's based on market demand. As of today, one Bitcoin is worth around 111,000, but that can change quickly. The market cap, which is the total value of all Bitcoins in circulation, is currently around $2.2 trillion. Bitcoin is the largest cryptocurrency by market value, which shows just how important it is in the financial world. Its value reflects growing adoption and increasing interest from institutional investors. It's also worth mentioning that Bitcoin's price has been quite volatile lately, with some ups and downs pointing to an active and changing market. Some analysts believe there may be price corrections before any further increases. This kind of volatility is typical for Bitcoin, influenced by factors like market sentiment, regulations, and overall economic trends.
Wow, that's a huge amount of value in circulation. And I've heard there's a cap on how much Bitcoin can ever exist. Is that true?
Yes, absolutely. Bitcoin has a fixed supply of 21 million coins, which makes it deflationary. This means that unlike traditional fiat currencies, no more than 21 million Bitcoins will ever be created. This scarcity is part of why it's seen as such a valuable asset.
That's interesting. So is Bitcoin safe to use? Can it actually be hacked?
Bitcoin itself is extremely secure, as we discussed earlier, because of its decentralized nature and the strength of its cryptography. However, individual wallets and exchanges can be vulnerable to hacking, so it's important for users to take proper security measures, like using hardware wallets and two-factor authentication.
That's a key point. Moving on. Is Bitcoin legal everywhere, or are there restrictions in certain countries?
Well, Bitcoin's legal status varies by country. In some places, like El Salvador, it's accepted as legal tender, while in other countries, it's restricted or outright banned. It's important for users to check their local regulations before getting involved.
Got it. So technically, Bitcoin's legal status really depends on where you are. Now, moving on to another big topic, we've heard a lot about the environmental impacts of Bitcoin mining. Can you shed some light on that?
Sure, Bitcoin mining requires a lot of energy, as miners need to run high-powered computers to solve those complex algorithms. This has led to concerns about its environmental impact, especially in regions where electricity comes from non-renewable sources. However, some miners are transitioning to greener energy solutions to reduce their carbon footprint.
Interesting. It's a whole world of its own. And finally, what does the future of Bitcoin look like? Is it just a trend, or is it here to stay?
Technically, Bitcoin has certainly proven its staying power. While there are challenges like regulatory hurdles and market volatility, its underlying technology, blockchain, is becoming more widely accepted. Many believe that Bitcoin could play a larger role in the global financial system in the future, especially as people look for alternatives to traditional banking.
That's great insight. Thanks so much for joining us today and shedding light on Bitcoin. To our listeners, I hope this episode helped you understand the fundamentals of Bitcoin and its potential in the future.
Thanks again for having me. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you all for tuning in. What do you think about Bitcoin? Do you believe it will transform the global financial system? Feel free to share your thoughts and feedback with us. Remember, this podcast is purely educational and not financial advice. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Moneywise to stay informed on the latest in business, economy, and finance. Stay connected as we've got lots of exciting episodes coming your way. Stay informed, stay ahead, and take care.